Where are you originally from?
I grew up in Charlottesville, Virginia. I was actually born in Lynchburg, Virginia, but I grew up in Charlottesville.
When did you come to Ashland?
I came to Ashland after I graduated high school, which was 1973. I came here in the fall of 1973 to attend Randolph-Macon College.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
Well, my my grandmother, actually, she was in Lynchburg, and so was my grandfather, and they had 9 children. So what I especially remember is that we all called her Mama Jones, and we would go to her house often because Lynchburg is only an hour and a half from Charlottesville, and all my other relatives lived on the hillside that they owned in Lynchburg, and we had wonderful memories, family gatherings.
What were some of the activities you recall doing with them?
At one point, I sort of thought we were like the Kennedys because we would go outside, the whole gang, my uncles, my father, I was kind of a tomboy. We all went out and played touch football and any other kind of sports. But my relatives in Lynchburg really got involved with croquet. And so on the land where the house was, they actually made a lighted croquet court.
What were your parents like growing up?
My parents were great. My mother did stay at home, and she had 4 children. I was the oldest. My father worked at Sperry Marine, which was in Charlottesville. He was an engineer. They were wonderful, and they were very involved with their children, and we had a backyard where my dad played baseball, and we had a little rubber ball that we used, and he grew a little garden back there, and it was just a very pleasant childhood.
Why did you come to Ashland?
Well, when I was looking at colleges, I did interview at UVA. I'm not sure if I would have gotten in or not. Didn't follow through on that. I also put in an application at Virginia Tech, where I was accepted, and I went to Tech and saw all of the dark rocks there. It was a cloudy day, and decided that was not for me. My best friend went there. I came to Ashland to look at the school, and when I came to look at the school, what really stood out the most in my mind, there's a couple of things. One thing was the church, which was St. Anne's Church on the corner. That really caught my attention. And then I noticed all the wonderful old houses on College Avenue. They just seemed very homey and welcoming. And then, of course, at that time, the fountain ran all of the time. And that's really, I didn't even speak to anybody at Randolph-Macon. It just felt good to me, felt very comfortable, and I decided that I would like to come to Ashland and go to Randolph-Macon.
Were there any notable people that you remember from your childhood that lived in your community?
Well, since I was in Charlottesville, and I don't know if this is relevant to Ashland history, but a lot of my friends' fathers were professors and artists, and one of my friends' father was Peter Taylor, who's written a number of books that are well known, and just in general, that had a big influence on me in life. And but here in Ashland, there were some people that had an influence on me, but that was after I graduated from Randolph-Macon College. At Randolph-Macon, I would say that some of the professors did make a big impression on me, and two stand out right now in my mind. One was one that I had, who is still there, but he is retiring soon, and that is Richie Watson, Dr. Watson. I was an English major, and he made a big impression on me. And another professor that I did not have, but my boyfriend had, and he was a huge influence on my boyfriend and made him become what he is today. He teaches chemistry, and it was Schuyler Miller, who was the chemistry and geology teacher at Randolph-Macon.
What are some of your earliest childhood memories?
Actually, just having fun outside. I wish that kids did more of that today. I mean, we had a little creek back in the woods behind us, and that is where we spent most of our time. And we caught salamanders, and we caught frogs, and it just was a lot of fun playing back in the woods. I think that sums it up.
Did you have a childhood role model?
I don't think that I can really pinpoint anybody in particular. I do know that I did have great admiration for the principal of my elementary school, Orly Starnes, and she made a big impression on me because she was so fair and kind, and she was pretty much of a role model, I'd say, in elementary school.
What were some of the expectations while in the presence of other adults or in the presence of your parents?
Oh, without a doubt, it was to be polite. We learned early on the value of good manners and respect for others, especially older people. I really, that pretty much was what I learned.
How are the decisions made in your family, and who was responsible for child care and the discipline?
When I was growing up, my mother definitely was in child care. She took care of us. She made the meals. She did the laundry. She was an at-home mother. And my father probably, I would say, did the discipline a little more than my mother did, yes.
During your childhood and early adolescence, what schools did you attend?
Well, once again, it was in Charlottesville, so I went to Walker Junior High School, and then I went to Lane High School, which is no longer. Now they have a joint high school in Charlottesville High School, but I went to Lane High School.
Were they public or private?
Public.
Okay. And what did you dislike or like about school?
I liked school until probably high school. I still liked it, but I did enjoy the English classes. I must say that I didn't like the math classes, and just a few of the teachers and some of the rules that we had. We had hall monitors and things like that, and the little locker, and the whole 9 yards of sharing the big bathroom with people and being crowded in the halls, just like any other high school student.
What were the major differences between education today and when you went to school?
I definitely think that we had more room for creativity, and that although the classes were disciplined, they were very disciplined. We didn't have as many kids who misbehaved and acted out, and I don't know why, but it was just all the kids understood that they were supposed to respect their teachers and the school itself. I think that today there is a little more emphasis because of the SOLs on learning the facts, and I think kids are pushed very hard. When I started school, we didn't even have kindergarten. and that was an issue when it became public school. You needed to have kindergartens. We didn't go to school till we were 6 years old. So and we had a lot of recesses. I mean, I just think it was actually more child oriented, but at the same time, I think the expectations were there and probably were met more than they are today.
In regards to living in Charlottesville, was your family like very active in attending church?
We did. My mother was from Wisconsin, and she was Catholic, and my dad was from Lynchburg, and he was Baptist. So they had to reach a compromise on the church. So we actually went to a Presbyterian church, and yeah, I did go to Sunday school. Uh-huh.
Did your family get along with your neighbors?
Yes, yes.
And what were some of the gathering places in your neighborhood?
A lot of it was my backyard with the kids. We all came over and they played touch football and baseball, and my dad played with us. So, plus at that time the neighborhood was very quiet, and we could ride our bikes on the streets. And my mother's friend was right across the street and was the mother of my friend there in the neighborhood. So, just. It was a lot of fun, a lot more freedom than now.
What was your first job? Was it in Ashland? And if so, who did you work for?
It was not in Ashland. It was when I was in high school, and my first job was working at the University of Virginia Hospital delivering food trays after school, and it was wonderful.
Would you say that it was easy or difficult to support yourself or for your family to support?
You mean my first job out of college? Is that what we're looking at right now?
Yes,
ma'am. I taught at English at Patrick Henry High School. And so, yes, I was on my own, and it was fine. I shared an apartment. Actually, it was a townhouse with another teacher.
What other jobs have you had?
Well, right now I am the branch manager here at the Ashland Library. I also, mostly they have been in the teaching realm. I did work at a bookstore for a couple of years, and I was the Hanover coordinator for the Reed Center, which is a literacy program that is based in Richmond, helping people who don't have reading skills to increase their reading skills. So I was in charge of promoting the program here and matching volunteers who had been trained with people who needed their skills improved.
This is a okay. Mhm. Now I'm going to ask about some of your family stories that you might have. To begin with, does your family have any stories from World War I? And if so, how did World War I impact your family?
I don't know any World War I stories.
Okay, does your family remember anything about the Great Depression?
Definitely. Both my father and my mother grew up during that time, and my mother used to tell us about potato soup. They ate potato soup all the time. And my father then told us about, of course he grew up in a family with 9 children, how at Christmas time they would get an orange and some nuts, and that's about it.
What do you remember about the civil rights movement?
Well, I was, when I was growing up in Charlottesville, the civil rights movement was going on, and what I especially remember is seeing the riots on TV when they occurred and being frightened. I thought that maybe that we would have riots right outside of my neighborhood and people would be coming in the neighborhood. being angry and upset. I do remember John Kennedy, and I remember Lyndon Johnson, and I remember the Civil Rights Amendment being passed. I remember then that I didn't have any children of color going to my elementary school, and I did not have any children of color going to my junior high. But when I went to high school, they had stopped segregation at that point, and there had been an all-black high school in Charlottesville, Burnley Moran, and that combined with Lane High School, which had been the white high school, and there was definitely a lot of unrest. There were some upheavals while I was there. At one time we had an assembly, and I distinctly remember that one of the teachers unfortunately got up and left because they were protesting the fact of the song that the black community views as sort of their anthem being played at that. And I had a friend that I worked with at the hospital, and her boyfriend had gotten in trouble because of walking out. A lot of kids walked out to protest, not the fact that the fact that the black children were there, but the fact that they didn't think they were being treated fairly.
In regards to the anthem that was being sung, do you remember?
It's Lift Every Voice and Sing. Mm-hmm.
And how do you believe the civil rights movement affected your own life?
I felt that I grew up thinking everybody was equal, and I think it opened my eyes to the fact that other people did not feel that way, and I think it helped increase my interaction with other people with different colored skin. And I do know now when I was in junior high, and there were a few black children at the junior high, and one of them, I mean, we were all good friends. Clarice Jones, my name was Jones, and Clarice and I ran against each other to be the student council president, and I honestly believe that I won because I was white. I really do think that I won because I was white.
Where were any of your family members involved in politics?
No, but my dad would sure like to be. And during the last election, he had a big sign in his front yard that's over there on Thompson Street, listing all the things that he thought should be changed. No.
Do you know anything about the unsolved murder case here in Ashland?
It is an unsolved murder, and it really, everybody wants to get to the bottom of it, but I haven't heard of anybody yet who has been able to. Actually, the granddaughter of the unsolved murder victim works with me here at the library.
How did you travel around in Ashland?
Well, by foot originally, because I didn't have a car, and that's back in the days when Randolph-Macon students didn't have a lot of cars. You were lucky if you had a friend who had a car, because we were just here in Ashland, and we walked everywhere. There was no Burger King. There was nothing like that. We walked over. I would walk over to the Hanover Pharmacy, and there was an A&P store right there, and that's how I got around to begin with.
What do you remember about the train service in Ashland?
What I remember, we were talking about this recently because there's a little bit of a controversy that they might stop the Amtrak going through Ashland, which I don't know enough about to talk about. But I do remember that at one point, I don't think you could catch the train in Ashland. You had to go to Staples Mill Road. But then they renewed the stopping in Ashland at the train station. And I have taken several trains from the Ashland train station and loved that convenience. So just parking your car, getting on the train, and going where you're going, and come back, get in the car, and go home. It's great.
Where have been some of the places that you've taken on the train?
I went to New York City, and I've gone to Baltimore, and I've gone to Philadelphia. Oh, and I went to Washington.
Where did you buy your clothes and do your marketing when you were a child?
Bought the clothes at Leggett's department store, and did the marketing at there was Kroger's was a grocery store, and then there was a Safeway.
Where did you get your hair cut?
Well, my mom cut it for a while, and that's a good question. I'm not really sure. I can't even remember that.
What do you remember in regards to the original Henry Clay Inn?
Well, when I was here at Randolph-Macon, and after I was married, I married another graduate of Randolph-Macon, and we left town because his job took him to Lynchburg, of all places. And when I came back, they had rebuilt the Henry Clay Inn. It was not, this replica was not here when we were gone. And it's a wonderful building. In fact, that's where I'm going to get married next Saturday.
Do you recall anything about the older businesses or establishments in Ashland?
Well, I do. I love the Hanover Pharmacy because as a freshman, like I said, I would walk over there, and they had a wonderful stationery department at that time. And I don't know what it is, I've always just really liked stationery. So that is one of my first great memories of shopping in Ashland. I do remember the old Stagecoach restaurant because that's where we stopped to eat on my first day of being here, and I was terrified, and and I couldn't eat very much. And actually, I still ate there after I graduated from college. It was still there. There were, like I said earlier, there wasn't a stoplight in town at that time. There was none of the businesses that are across Route 1. And what we would do in college is if somebody had a car, we'd go up Route 1 to a place called the Celebrity Room. And at one point, the Celebrity Room burnt down and was built again. But that brings back a lot of fond memories, going down to the Celebrity Room.
Do you mind sharing any of those memories?
Okay, I do remember one in particular. It's great. My boyfriend in college, it was his birthday, and so what I did was have him, what's the word? You know, they kind of blindfolded him and took him away like he was in a fraternity, like joining a fraternity, and he didn't know what was going on, and the person who took him brought him to the Celebrity Room where all of his friends were, and it was a great party.
What do you think about the newer businesses in the town of Ashland, such as Ashland Coffee and Tea, Suzanne's, the Iron Horse Restaurant, Starbucks, Walmart?
I love Ashland Coffee and Tea. I'm thrilled that it's been successful. My friend, my old neighbor, Kay Landry, is one of the owners, and I love to go there and listen to music, although I can't afford to go very often because a lot of their musicians, the ticket price is a little higher than I can afford. I also like the Iron Horse. Of quite a bit, and actually went there last Friday night to listen to music of the local bluegrass band that our town manager is in. And Suzanne's, I just had lunch there today with my son to celebrate. He just took his MCATs today, so we went there and celebrated afterwards that he had finished. And now Starbucks, I've only been to a Starbucks once in my life, and actually that was in Seattle. I've never been to this one, and I don't really plan to. I'm very much against where they put the Starbucks. It's just in the way. I understand why they put it there because of all the hotels that are over there now to get that business. Walmart, I was not part of the huge "Don't Bring Walmart to Town" movement. I mean, I would have preferred probably if it hadn't come, but it's here, and I don't know that it has affected me in the town in any way. I still go to I still go to Rose's and Food Lion and U-Crops, all of the local stores.
Although you did not grow up in the town of Ashland, how do you think it has changed over the years?
I think it has grown and developed, and I do get a little concerned about that development. A lot of people have succumbed to the charm of the town, just as I did when I was at Randolph-Macon. I decided I have moved twice from Ashland, and have come back both times to the little town of Ashland. It just has a place in my heart. I think that I think there's still a lot of improvements that can be made to make it a more attractive place with the businesses, etc. But overall, it's still a great place.
What were the reactions of some of your family members or other neighbors in regards to outlying areas affecting Ashland?
None of us really like it. It's like, yeah, if you want to live here, I'm sorry, it's a great place, but we don't need to become another West End. Sure.
Mm-hmm. I know you said that you've moved twice and come back to Ashland. May I ask what brought you back?
Well, in both instances, my husband's job brought us back to the area. He was the food service director at Randolph-Macon College, and he was transferred back here from Lynchburg to do that, and that is what brought us back the first time. And we lived here in town, and we had 2 children at that time. Robbie Bach, who is my youngest, and Alan Bach, who is my oldest. And so they actually spent their preschool years here. In fact, Alan started Henry Clay School, and then John was transferred again to Kenyon College to be the food service director, and that was in Gambier, Mount Vernon, Ohio. So their early school experiences for both of them were in a small Midwestern town. Then my husband, and very thankfully, because I really missed being in Virginia and the area, it was heartbreaking for me to leave Ashland, to be real honest with you. I was very involved. There was a junior women's club in town, and we were very active, and I just was involved with the Arts and Activities Center and the kids' preschools, and it was a difficult transition for me. And I was very happy when he was transferred back to the area to be the food service director at VCU, at which time we had the option of living anywhere around Richmond. And, immediately when we came out to Ashland and were looking at houses, it just felt like home. And it was great because some of the kids' earlier friends were still here, and they became friends again. It was just really nice. Robbie, of course, was younger, and he didn't even remember interacting with some of the kids he had gone to preschool with. But they all were in the same class, and they all became friends again. And I might have gotten off track already.
Where, I know that you've moved quite a bit. So where in Ashland have you been stationed?
Well, the first house we bought, and it was the very first house we ever bought, was on John Street. And at that time, I was staying home with my two little guys, and John could even bicycle to Randolph-Macon from John Street. And that was a great little neighborhood to live in. We had a neighbor who had a daughter who was the same age and so as Alan, and they played together quite a bit. And then they had a daughter who was the same age as Robbie, so they were built-in playmates, and it was a quiet little street. And then we decided that we might need a little bit of a bigger place. So we actually moved out to Mount Herman Road, and I loved that. It was a great area. And that's where we moved from when we went to Ohio. When we came back, we actually, somebody had redone a house on Arlington Street, which is an old neighborhood here in town. And we did buy that house, and it was just, it was a wonderful place to live. The kids, we had a white picket fence and all those wonderful things, and the neighborhood was great. There are a lot of older people who'd been there for a long period of time, and my neighbor across the street, Mr. Majette, would tell me stories about Ashland when he was outside, and my neighbor, Miss Stevens, at that point, her husband had been the athletic director at Randolph-Macon, Coach Stevens. So that was a great neighborhood to live in. And yeah.
In what ways did having a college in the town affect your life?
Having the college in town? Well, obviously it affected my life quite a bit. I mean, after I graduated, I went out to teach at Patrick Henry, and that was wonderful to already be in town and have the job there, yeah.
Do you mind sharing any particular stories or events that you have about Randolph-Macon?
Well, I don't think we want to share all. You know what? I think this is, well, we had a cockroach festival. Which you might be able to relate to. I lived down in what we called then the motel dorms, which I was told they were going to be demolished. They were there temporarily. They're still there. They've been renovated. The first dorm I lived in was what we called New Dorm. At that time, it didn't even have a name. One of my favorite memories to begin with was that the water fountain outside actually changed colors. And that was really fun at night to see that, and being thrown into the water fountain. Yep. And we had at that time streakers, and that was amazing. The weather was really good that February. I was a freshman, y'all. So I mean, we called it colloquy. We had what you call Jan term now. And that's when the streakers, every night, everybody would go out behind, I think it's called Conrad now, and Mary Branch, and wait for somebody to go streaking by. And it was a very memorable experience. And that year, the kids, everybody went to Camptown races, and that was my first Camptown race experience. And sure enough, a streaker went through Camptown races, and it turned out that his father owned a clothing store.
What do you believe makes Ashland so special?
For me, it's the accessibility of everything, and I feel that there's just such a genuine respect for each other in the town. I don't think that it's guided by some towns. You can definitely feel the presence of those who have money and those who don't have money. And here in Ashland, I feel like everybody is treated and loved the same way. I feel a great sense of community here, and I feel very proud of the people that live here that make it that way. And over the years, I've made a lot of friends and known a lot of people, and I like that. I like that sense of community. I like being part of the community, and that's what you can do if you're in a small town like this. You can become part of the community, and you can make a difference, whereas if you're in an area, well, say Chesterfield County, which is close by, you really don't have that impact on a town. It is a town.
I know that you had said earlier on in the interview that you and your late husband attended Randolph-Macon. And in relation to your eldest son, why did he choose not to go to Randolph-Macon?
I think that Alan is my oldest son, and my youngest son, neither one of them went to Randolph-Macon. He was ready to have a change of pace. You see, he grew up here, and to him, he'd gone to baseball camp, he'd gone to soccer camp, all of those things over at Randolph-Macon. He even had worked in the food service department for a little while with my husband, so he really wanted to go to a different school. He went to Longwood, and that's where he met his wife. So that's a nice story. My youngest son, Robbie, decided to go to the University of Virginia, so we kind of traded places on the road. I knew the road well, but now I'm going from Ashland to Charlottesville instead of going from Charlottesville to Ashland. So, and he needed a change of pace. But I will say this, that both of my sons still remain close to their classmates that they grew up with out here. They both played baseball and were very good baseball players, and they played basketball, and they were a big part of the community while they were here, and they made some very close friends. They still keep in touch with those close friends. When they were growing up, another thing that I just do want to add is why I think Ashland is so special is because when they were growing up, they had to cope with a couple of things. That I had breast cancer, and that happened right after we moved here, which was very good because we had a lot of community support. And then after my bout with breast cancer, obviously I'm fine. My late husband, had leukemia, and he did unfortunately pass away from the leukemia when Alan was at Longwood and Robbie was a junior at Patrick Henry. And I guess that's one reason that I feel so strongly about Ashland is it is a community, and it is, I know Hillary Clinton had a book about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I really feel like everybody in the community pitched in, and I think that Alan and Robbie grew up with a strong regard for how community can help you and support you during times like that. And anyway.
Do they come back to visit often?
Well, yes. I just had lunch with my son, Robbie, today, and Alan lives in New Kent, so he comes often. He works in Richmond, and Robbie is working hard to get into med school, so he has actually been with me taking some classes because he didn't know that when he started UVA, and so he is now getting an apartment with some of his friends from high school. So, yeah, they're here. That's
Yeah.
good.
What is your life like today in Ashland?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I am getting remarried. This is about 6 years after my first husband John passed away, and we're going to get married at St. James Episcopal Church and have the reception at the Henry Clay Inn that's been rebuilt. I have been at the Ashland Library since my late husband passed away. So I've been here for 6 years, and it's been a great 6 years. I really enjoy working at the library. It combines everything that I like. I get to interact with people in the community. I get to interact with people of different ages. I get to interact with. I just did story time. We have adult programs, and we have older people that come in to check out books, etc. So all ages and all walks of life are served here, and it just really is the perfect job here in Ashland. Now, and I also helped with the plaza that's out front, and I sincerely believe, as the plaza says, that Ashland is the center of the universe.